Money FM 89.3, the best of the afternoon update. The afternoon update with Lynlee Foo.
Very good afternoon to you. How are you doing this Tuesday? Welcome to Industry Insight. Now, from the phone in your pocket to the electric car on the road, and even the solar energy stored for a rainy day, batteries are quietly powering more and more of our lives. As Singapore and the Southeast Asian region step up net zero ambitions, these humble power packs are becoming the backbone of our clean energy future. But in the global race to dominate the battery industry, the challenge isn't to outproduce giants like China. It's to carve out a competitive niche in the value chain, one built on innovation, safety, and sustainability. Today on Industry Insight, we're exploring how the region, and Singapore in particular, can seize this opportunity. My guest is Dr. Chiam Sing Yang, Technical Director of the Singapore Battery Consortium and the lead for the ASEAN Battery Safety Network. Dr. Chiam, welcome.
Hi, Lynlee. Thank you for having me. Hello, everyone.
Great to have you, Dr. Chiam. Now, let's start with looking at the big picture. Southeast Asia is experiencing a growing focus on battery technology, particularly lithium-ion batteries. So what's driving this, and how far along are we in building a competitive value chain from R&D to manufacturing and even recycling?
Right. I think we can look at this probably from two angles. The first one is adoption. I think Southeast Asia itself has many plans in renewables, in EV adoption to meet its sustainable goals. So I think that is driving the marketplace for Southeast Asia. Then in doing this, I think we also realize that this is a huge market. This will go beyond the 300 billion by 2030. And I think, and we think that Southeast Asia countries has the ambition and I think the ability to capture a share of this value chain. I think that's driving a lot of the countries to have the strategy and to gear up to capture a share of this market. And this starts from working with different countries in the region. This starts from their own R&D plans, and we are very excited to be part of this effort.
Now, could you talk more about the ecosystem that we're in?
Right. So Southeast Asia, of course, in the battery space itself, we are still quite new. A lot of the plans for the different countries started, I think, not longer than 5 years ago. But just to remember, for battery tech itself, I think Asia is quite dominating. China, Korea, Japan, for example. And within Asia, then Southeast Asia becomes quite a natural region. If you look at where you want to have a second manufacturing base, if you look at where you want to park your trade, your IP positions. So I think this is definitely one avenue where we are seeing a lot of interest. I think one evidence is if you look at the foreign direct investments into the region, in the battery space, it has grown a lot just over the last 3 years. We are also advantaged by a few things. So countries like Indonesia, countries like Philippines, or even Vietnam and Thailand has some resources in the raw natural resources that makes batteries, for example, in nickel. So Indonesia itself has largest known nickel reserves. So these are advantages in terms of raw material space that the region has as well.
Okay. So am I right to say that, we don't really have the scale of China to actually compete with them in terms of this battery push?
Right. So China has been at this game for a while. They're very good in industrialization. They're very good in, definitely, of course, the cost down portion, but they're also very good technology-wise because they started this quite early. For us, we look at the cooperation we can do with China and other players, other leaders, technological in the field, and that has been what is happening with the investment into the regions. There are often partnerships and joint partnerships where the local players can make use of the partnerships to level up on their tech. So, of course, there are entrenched players within the space. But this is a market that if you look at adoption today, let's say if you just look at solar and wind, we are at 10-15% of where we can be. If you look at electric vehicles, adoption in the different markets today, in terms of stock, not in terms of the purchase of EV, just how many EVs are on the road today, you're looking at probably less than 5-10%. So the growth is there. And there can be new entrants to the market, and it's more likely that we can do this better with cooperation with the entrenched players.
Okay, but we can certainly look to becoming a global hub for battery recycling or second life applications, given the resources and talent available.
Yeah, so for end of life, that includes recycling, repurposing. In our view, this is still a space that's quite nascent because the end-of-life batteries hasn't really come on yet. I know that different countries are, of course, positioning themselves for this. In Singapore-wise, I think we are a little bit ahead. We have quite a number of companies in the recycling space already, and I think we also serve as a good locality in terms of trade routes, logistics routes. That makes us a potential place for acting as a hub in terms of processing of some of this black mass, for example.
Okay.
So there are some different models that we are working with, we think, and we'd like to see how this will pan out as well.
Okay. Dr. Chiam, let's talk about battery safety. This often comes up as one of the biggest hurdles to mass adoption, whether for EVs or large-scale storage. Why is that, and what role does the Southeast Asian region, or rather the ASEAN Battery Safety Network, play in tackling this?
Right, so we sort of started this ASEAN Battery Safety Network just this year that was approved by the ASEAN Committee of Science, Tech and Innovation. It's because when we see safety itself in the battery adoption and deployment is becoming more and more important, it has the potential to derail really the good work that the region is doing in terms of adoption, in terms of deployment. Mm-hmm. So that is from the region's perspective. And if you're a company in this space, safety itself is a lucrative space. But if you're a product company, then safety becomes an important reputation and a brand that you have to drive as well. So with this, we have been doing quite a number of work in Singapore on the safety aspect, and we want to bring the region along. So when we started this, that was our thinking. We want to know what the region is doing. We want to see how we can help the region level up. But as we go through the process, as we go through the several meetings, we realize also that the different countries also have their own plans. And they are also thinking about some things which sometimes we are a blind spot to us as well. So this becomes very useful as a network itself to look at where the blind spots are. And if we can move together as a whole, then the market access is there, the commonality is there, common language is there. I think it's very useful for the other aspects of deployments and adoption as well.
So for those of us who are not familiar with the ASEAN Battery Safety Network, do you mean you have like a group of regulators or industry players and even perhaps testing labs working together to come up with certification processes perhaps?
Right. So I think you are half correct. Mm-hmm. So the different representatives from the different countries are selected by their individual countries. Mm-hmm. So we do not sort of dictate whom they select. Mm. So there are people representing testing labs. There are people representing the science and tech field. There are industries players as well. There are government representatives as well. So it's quite a broad mix. Mm. I think we have maybe 30 representatives within this network itself. And this broad range of expertise is important because we do get varied views and perspectives that otherwise we wouldn't have with more confined group of representatives. Yeah.
Okay. Now let's talk about EV adoption across this region. It is definitely surging, which is very exciting, but it also puts pressure on supply chains, infrastructure, and policy. So what ripple effects are you seeing?
I think the EV adoption in ASEAN as per se is still at its initial stage, as I mentioned. But of course, we are seeing the double-digit sales numbers in Singapore as well. Mm. I think there's a few pressures definitely on the grid itself, because for the need for the chargers, there's a need to provide public charging points as well. So the grid has to follow. So that's one aspect. But maybe unique to the region that you will see is that a lot of the countries has also come up with what we call local adoption policies. Mm-hmm. This includes local manufacturing contacts as well, because they want to onshore the manufacturing. So in terms of supply chain, in terms of how this affects the business, is where you can also see the onshoring of some of the electric vehicles assemblies and producers into ASEAN. So Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia are some of the examples over the last 3 years where we have seen such announcements. Mm-hmm. And I think this will in turn then lower some of the costs for the electric vehicles within the region, which is a good thing for both consumers and of course provide jobs for the region as well.
And where does Singapore fit into this EV-driven supply chain?
So Singapore has some advantages if we can work well with our neighbours. So I think naturally for us, in terms of R&D, I think we are competitive for sure. So maybe one fun fact you might know about is in terms of battery research publications per capita, we are one of the highest in the world.
Wow.
So then besides that, trade as a locality itself, I think is quite attractive, especially if you are looking at the trade agreements that we have with different countries. Then it makes us, I think, a good space for working with the other countries, if they are the manufacturing base, to conduct their trade business, to anchor their IPs, to look at the R&D within this space in Singapore. But of course, now with SEZ, with the other potentials of locating their manufacturing bases closer, I think Singapore also has a lot to gain from this growth.
Okay, in terms of technology, what breakthroughs in battery performance or sustainability excite you most right now?
I think in the battery value chain, there's a few. In terms of next generation batteries, we are looking at really newer chemistries like sodium-based batteries, solid-state batteries. If you look at the pack development side, not only ourselves, but globally as well, they are looking at how to prevent thermal runaways from the batteries from the safety aspect, how to prevent thermal propagation at the system level, then early warning, predictive maintenance, the use of AI, cybersecurity. So these are a lot of the things that some of our members in the battery consortiums are working on. And not to mention for end of life. So for end of life itself, there are some battery chemistries that are not yet economically sustainable to recycle the elements. So this is something, again, that on the development front we are working on, and I think that there's a way to solve this problem.
Dr. Chiam, we are running out of time, but from your perspective, what does ASEAN need to prioritize in the next 5 years to be a serious player in this global battery landscape? I understand that there's also a major regional conference coming up soon.
Yes. So I think the Singapore Battery Consortium, together with some of our like-minded partners across in ASEAN, we know that collaboration is one key element in how ASEAN can work together, and we have to work together as one unit itself. So we have organized this ASEAN Battery Technology Conference. This happens once every year, and in this year itself, it will be in Thailand, in Phuket, just at the end of this month. So we definitely welcome everyone to check that out, and we welcome you at the conference itself. At the conference, you'll see industry players, you see government stakeholders, you see research academic professors, for example. And I think this is a good melting pot within this region where we can find out what each other are doing, and this is usually where we can work out how we can work together. So for example, the ASEAN Battery Safety Network came from a discussion in the previous meeting last year, which was held in Singapore.
I see. Very quickly, before we let you go, just how attractive is ASEAN's battery sector to global investors right now?
I would say that we are definitely a lot better than 3 years ago, because if you look at the policies that the different ASEAN countries have put in, I think the intent is there, and the support from the different governments are there for this space. They've identified this space to be a key sector where growth can be. If you look at Malaysia alone, in the last 3 years, there's close to 5 to 6 battery plants already being set up or on the way being set up. With that, you see actually the accompanying peripherals of suppliers, supplying the casing, supplying separators, etc. So this has been ongoing thing within ASEAN, where there's a lot of these partnerships and onshoring of this manufacturing that's going on. So I think from that alone, you can see, I hope that the consensus is that the region itself is attractive, and that's why you're seeing much of these investments, and we still see that for the next 3 to 5 years for sure.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Chiam, for giving us such a clear look at where ASEAN, including Singapore, stand in the battery race and what it will take to power the region's clean energy future. Appreciate your time. Thank you so much for your insights.
Thank you.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.